Maybe. Let's see. Okay. Now it's preparing to live stream.
Okay. Where was I? Now I just had your channel pulled up. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Okay. And we are live.
Excellent.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our Tuesday live stream. It's with me, Dana Morningstar, and Angie Atkinson.
Hello.
This is a live stream that we do every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We alternate channels. So next week we'll be over on Angie's channel. So please make sure that you are subscribed to both of us if you want to be notified of these live streams.
Indeed. Yes.
Yes. Let's see who we have hopping on today.
James, Robin. Looks like Jesse. I don't know how you go ahead.
Yeah, Susan. I don't know how you say that name. Kuntane?
Yeah, I was having a little trouble with that one too. Hot Potato, Penelope. Hey guys. See Rob, Deborah.
Cool. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
So I thought we would open today with the discussion. If you guys have heard about the guy, his name, Chris Watts is his name, who killed his family in Colorado. And just some points that Angie and I thought it would be helpful to address about this whole horrific situation that's been unfolding. For those of you who are not familiar with the situation, it's a man, seemingly happily married family, happy family in general. They were young. They were in their early 30s. She raved about him on social media, that they had this great marriage, that he was just this wonderful man. By all accounts, by friends and neighbors, he seemed like a devoted dad and just a really great person. And now he's being charged with strangling his 2 daughters and his pregnant wife. So it's this horrific. Jenna saying, yes, I live in Colorado. It's terrible. And yeah, this is happening in Colorado. It's absolutely horrific. And so the latest development in this case is that he is claiming that he killed his wife, but that he didn't kill his daughters. That he walked in on his wife, who had killed one daughter, was strangling the other daughter in a fit of anger and whatnot, killed his wife, strangled his wife. And then he removed the bodies, dumped them in like an oil drum out where he worked. And yeah, Deborah saying, yes, I heard about this. I thought he has NPD. What was interesting about this is, and Deborah saying, yeah, I don't believe that. I don't think anybody believes that his wife was, strangling her children and that this went. I think he's spinning things to make himself the victim of the situation. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, all of it's ridiculous, right? I mean, if that were to happen, you would call the police. Even if you did in a fit of rage end up attacking somebody or even killing them, you wouldn't take your children and throw them into an oil drum. Like that's, I can't even imagine.
True. And, Mo Cowboy says, thanks for discussing this. The picture perfect snapshots, always a red flag for him, he says. Now, but not before recovery. Says, I used to believe the painted picture and not look behind for truth. And I think that's really, really what we're trying to share. I mean, is that it's about, even when you're on the inside of that perfect picture, sometimes you can tell, but even from the outside, people miss it a lot, don't they? Oh yes. And I think one of the big takeaways for us is so many people get caught up in when they see a narcissist or sociopath cry or say all the right things. I'm so sorry. I'm so concerned. It'll never happen again. I love you so much. They get caught up in the words, or they get caught up in the crocodile tears or this kind of stuff. And I think this guy is a good example, or at least a more recent good example of that these kinds of people can say all the right things. They can put on a performance, and we can't just hold on to the little things that we want to hear. We have to look at the whole picture.
and see, are their words and actions lining up? Is this a consistent pattern for them one way or another? And to not hold on to crumbs of hope of, well, they've never apologized before, but now they've apologized, so it must mean that they're sincere, when the reality is their behavior is this chronic pattern of like cheating or lying or siphoning funds or stealing, or on and on and on.
Yeah.
And
it's really shocking. And you see it so frequently, you know what I mean? Like in some smaller iterations, like the Daddy of Five thing. I don't know if you heard about that on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you did a video on it. Somebody back then reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you talk about this?" And I didn't even know about it. So I looked it up and, researched it a little bit, and I was horrified by what I saw. And that was just that. They ended up taking those kids away, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And then there was another situation somewhere in Missouri where I live, a couple of years back, where a man took his two little children out. I guess he killed his wife at home or something, and then he took his two little children out and killed them in the car, and then ran the car into the lake or something. It was a bunch of, and it was a similar situation. Nobody had any idea, and everything was different. And I've seen the, more obvious stories too, where people know there's stuff in the marriage and things are going on. And then you have to wonder, like, I always think about what the person must have been feeling and thinking, during the time that it happened. And so one of the things that you and I talked about before, and that I'd like to mention now, is that we see when we're in abuse, we don't ever think that it could really be us that's on the news. And so whenever I hear people talking about being especially physically abused, but even mentally, in many cases, psychological abuse can lead to physical violence. Then I try to let people know it's so much. You could be a statistic, whether you believe it or not. I think we have a high threshold for abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so I think that we tolerate, we are depersonalized already. So we already think, well, we aren't as equal or as real or as important as other people, but it certainly wouldn't happen to us. And I think that's the overarching message here from me, is that you have to recognize sometimes, even when you think, no way, they're a little cranky or they're a little pissy or they're a little pushy, but they would never do that. You don't know. Even women do it to men, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Sorry, just had to throw that in there.
No, I think that's all really valid.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting too with the whole Chris Watts case. I forget who she is. There was a gal who was speaking about it. I don't know if she was part of the FBI or the police that's on the case, or who she was, but she brought up some great points. She was kind of tiptoeing around calling him a sociopath, but she was talking about his behavior in terms of like being she's like, there would have been, like, even though they had financial problems, even though he reportedly was having an affair with a coworker, even though, like, there's pro-social ways to handle that kind of stress. Like, you can ask for family for a loan, you can stop spending money, you can get on a budget, you can, you can get a divorce. Like, there's other things that you can do besides murdering your whole family. And so she was pointing out, basically this guy was handling in very antisocial ways, right? And she said, the level of the arrogance and the confidence of this guy to go on the news and create this whole story and really think that people are going to buy anything that he's saying when he's so obviously lying. She's like, that the level of, arrogance there and really grandiosity to think that other people are that stupid and that you're so much smarter than them, that you'd be able to fool a police force in the year 2018 with all the DNA evidence and crime dogs and everything else is just, it's delusional is what it is. And, the level of entitlement, right? So like, it's one thing to be upset with a person or to want a divorce, but it's another thing to just think that you are so entitled to just discard them with such heartlessness. That's where it quits being like normal behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And on potentially not related, but also related in a way. is apparently, just so that you guys everybody watching knows, I was not as familiar with this story because I try to stay away from news that makes me sad. But
Yeah.
this is a relevant story. So I'm just kind of catching up with Dana on this right now. But one of the things that I just discovered with a quick search was that apparently in that same affidavit where they told the story about him saying he found his wife strangling one of their daughters, it said that he's actively involved in a coworker affair. So he was, and then if supposedly he had gone, according to him, he went to the house and he'd spoken to her supposedly just before after she got home from a work trip just before 2 a.m. He had told her he wanted to separate. And then he left at 5 a.m. Friday, supposedly. So what was interesting is that apparently that the person who dropped her off knew that she was being abused, because she said that the next day her friend called the police and asked them to check on her after she had dropped her off. So she dropped her off at home at like 1:48 a.m. after her work trip, and then 1:40 p.m. the next day, she's the one who made the phone call and said, go check on him. Now, if your friend thinks, I'm worried about this girl and somebody needs to go check on her, enough that she's calling the police, you have to know, that it's not, she must have known she was being abused, or at least that she was in a toxic situation at that point.
Yeah. Or she picked up on something with that guy.
Right.
That was just didn't sit right with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently there are several different versions of of his story, as you mentioned about but I think the fact that he was cheating doesn't necessarily mean narcissist, but I think all of these other things, and the allegedly obvious fact that there was something going on that made that friend think that the wife had a reason to be afraid.
Yeah.
And that she could have been in danger. And I just think I think how many of us have been in a situation where we could have been that woman? You know what I mean? How many of us are still in that situation? That's very scary.
It is. My situation with Jack at the time, I really struggled so much with, am I making a big deal out of nothing, or like what is going on? Because we had this we had this amazing relationship. So I thought, and it was all a lie. He had this huge double life that was going on. And, I was getting sick. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'd leave the house and then I'd be fine. And then I would, I went out of town for, I don't know, like about a month, felt fine, came back, got sick again. And I was just so confused. And then when I came across his double life, people, and then started trying to tell other people about this. And I just felt like other people thought I was crazy, just making a big deal out of nothing. And, but it was that lack of sincerity that our relationship we never had one. It was a manipulationship. And, now knowing what I know now, it's like, oh yeah, he could have totally been poisoning me. He could have totally had every intention of killing me. He wouldn't have missed a step. It would have been a huge relief for him to get rid of me and to play the grieving, wonderful boyfriend.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff is terrifying, but normal people, even police, have a hard time, like, I think truly, even therapists, like I had called the police, I was speaking with the therapist, and it was still just kind of like, oh, come on, lady, and it was just the most invalidating, isolating, lonely experience, trying to be heard, and then really wondering, like, am I just making a big deal out of this? But it's like, no, this stuff can escalate quickly. And sometimes there doesn't need to be this like long going pattern of overt abuse. If you feel like something's off, and if you feel like a person, if their behavior shows you that they just don't care. I mean, Jack showed me he cared to my face. But I mean, everything that I found out was just I don't even know. It was a lie. Like, finding that out made it a lot easier for me to walk away, because it was just, normal people don't lie to that level.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Lost Miranda says, is every crime of passion based on a personality disorder? Can't anyone be affected occasionally by a loss of control? Of course. And I think that's not what we're saying at all. I think what we're saying is, here's an opportunity, if you are in a situation like that, to get yourself safe before something like this happens. You know what I mean? You can't ever predict everything. But if we could save one single person by doing this stream, who would finally go, oh my gosh, this is what I needed to hear to get out, that's enough.
Yeah. And the gal who I was mentioning earlier, that FBI or police gal, was saying this. She's like, it's not like this guy just snapped. This wasn't like, it wasn't like he snapped. The fact that he went on the air, he is making himself into the victim, that he's arrogant and conceited enough to think that he can come up with some outrageously delusional, offensive story that his wife was going around killing his children, and that, here he is playing the good guy and he had to kill her. This gal was saying, she's like, odds are this is a pattern of behavior. This has been going on for a while. So she was kind of talking in more like layman's or like kind of cloaked terms about, this guy is a person. They're thinking that he obviously is a sociopath, that this is the lack of empathy, the lack of remorse, the level of entitlement, the grandiosity, the arrogance, the false sense of charm, these kinds of things. There's probably been a pattern of this. It's just at this point that it bubbled over.
Yeah.
Pro-social, like she was saying, pro-social is these things happen and people deal with them. Antisocial is they deal with it in really extreme, convenient to them kind of ways. It's impulsive. There is no forward thinking about consequences. And then there's that, coupled with that arrogance of, I'll totally get away with it. And any of us can see, like, why would you think you would get away with any of this? Like, you've got to be an idiot to think you'd get away with this.
Right.
So,
yeah. But every now and then, there's that person that everybody knows did it or thinks did it, and they live the rest of their life not in jail for it or prison for it. Like, I'm not saying, I probably shouldn't even say it. I'm going to say it, Dana, don't be mad, but O.J. Simpson, a lot of people disagree that O.J. Simpson didn't kill his wife. And Ron Goldman or whatever. And I think and I'm not trying to debate that, because I don't have an opinion that I will state about that in either way. But I think that's one example of, every now and then somebody appears to get away with something. And I think because they see that, maybe that's part of the reason they think they can. Maybe they really are just having a moment of, insanity or whatever. But I think in most cases, they are that arrogant. And I think you're just, when it comes to especially the people who abuse first and take it to that level.
Yeah. I'll go on record saying I completely think that OJ killed Nicole and Ron, and I think it's outrageous that that he was set free. And they had a long-standing pattern or history of, or I shouldn't say he had a long-standing history of horrific physical abuse against her, and there were all kinds of pictures of police photos of her black and blue. And this is how that kind of abuse tends to end, is with a murder. Yes. And his crime was so vicious. And that's the thing too, there's like different degrees of, it's interesting to watch people's body language and like how the types of crimes they commit and how they go about it. And because certain things are more distancing and certain things are more aggressive and personal. Yeah. And going after a person's throat, strangling or slashing it's so incredibly, such an act of aggression, and it's so personal. Yeah. That those types of crimes don't tend to happen from strangers.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Mickey Duncan says that, Mickey Duncan says, when I was younger, I was in a physically abusive relationship. He wasn't a narcissist, but he would never hit my face because he didn't want people to see the bruises. And I think that's, and she said, but he would kick me and suffocate me. And I think that that is sadly, you know, thank goodness that you're out of there, Mickey.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of one example of the type of person who might just go too far. You know, I think when you get to the point where you've strangled both of your daughters, I can't even imagine how people kill their children at all. I mean, I know my children drive me insane sometimes, especially when they were small. But not once ever have I thought of hurting any of them on that level, you know, or at all, really physically. You know, I mean, I might feel bad that I yelled at them. You know, I don't even do that very often, but I don't understand how someone could even do anything to hurt a child, but even, you know, their pregnant wife. I mean,
it's that level of detachment, right? Like it just speaks to, like, we talk about often your analogy with like this, like how we attach to our cell phone is how they attach to other people.
Truth.
And you either serve a purpose or you don't. And it's like Scott Peterson killed his wife and she was 8.5 months pregnant.
Yes.
So like, how do you even, what kind of mental gymnastics does a person have to do to think that? I mean, it was, you know, his firstborn child. It was like how the level of connection that a normal person would have felt would have been really, really deep. And to be able to somehow twist that around is just unfathomable.
Right. And in both of these cases, it appears that it may have been at least partially related to another person in their relationship who shouldn't have been there. So that makes me think even more that I was spot on with the cell phone thing, because I'm looking at my cell phone. That's why I looked over, because, you know, what do you do with a cell phone that you don't need anymore because you got a new one? You know, you might factory reset it or give it to somebody or sell it or whatever. You get rid of it. You know, and I'm not trying to be callous, but it really does fit.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like if a person, you know, with narcissism, it's the attitude of I want what I want when I want it. And the entitlement of I should be able to have that. And so it's just that unbridled level of entitlement and impulsivity to where if other people are in our way of whatever we want our parents' inheritance, we want a job promotion, we want to go off and have this other life with a new honey, then those other people, they're in the way.
Yeah.
And that's where that thinking becomes so dangerous. And like, it's just mind-boggling to think that another person, I mean, especially like you said, like your own children, like your own cute little children. And how, you know?
It's just think about, you know, now this guy's in prison, or he will be.
Yeah. I think he's at least in holding. I think they charged him yesterday.
Right. He's going to prison. And now his life is hell, and he's probably going to get abused in prison. But if he had the foresight to, you know, divorce his wife or just leave, you know, then none of this would be happening. I mean, maybe there would be drama with his family or her family, but there certainly wouldn't be this. And I'm guessing it's money that must have motivated him, because he realized, well, she's going to have 3 kids of mine and I'm going to have to pay for everything. She's, you know, a stay-at-home mom or whatever, you know. That would put a crimp in his lifestyle. It's just horrifying to me to think about, you know, how many survivors are sitting here right now wishing they could just get out, file for divorce, whatever. And, you know, who would never consider killing someone, even their own abuser. You know, not that I'm saying anyone should ever do that, because I think it's wrong all the way around, you know, but it's a horrible, I don't know, Dana. I've thought about it. This is a weird thing to say, but, you know, over the years, I think about a lot of things. I'm real philosophical. And when someone close to me was killed at one point in my life, and I'm not going to go into any detail about that. They weren't that close, but they were somebody that was close enough. They made me think. And I thought to myself, who, you know, could I ever kill somebody? I asked myself that question, and I really considered, is there a circumstance under which I would physically kill another person? And what it all came down to is that only if it was the only way I could stop them from hurting someone like my children. Like if I couldn't injure them and get them off the children and then call the police, you know what I mean? And that was the only possible way, because when you really think about it, taking a person's life, like, do we even have that right? I mean, I know I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I don't understand how. I do understand it's the in addition to the lack of empathy and the lack of concern for other people, it's the arrogance and the grandiosity, I guess, or something. Because how do you justify to yourself literally ending a person's life, taking someone out of the world? Who are we to do that? You know what I'm saying? I can't even fathom it. It's such a bizarre thing crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I struggle with that because I think there's certain people, like, for example, there's a part of me that feels like I could totally work a full-time job where if this was legal, like I don't want to go to jail, if the pushing child molesters off of a cliff.
Girl,
I could do that 40 hours a week and sleep like a baby at night. I have
Sure.
no moral, ethical dilemma about that.
I have to agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, if it's just a person that disagreed with me, no. But if they're like dangerous and destructive, especially to like innocent people, I feel like they just need to go, that they're too much of a danger to society to even be allowed to roam the streets. I would love to see the consequences for child molesters be 25 years to life. I think the sentences now are ridiculous, and people that give out these sentences really do not understand rehabilitation for them, which is pretty much nil because they're all personality disordered for the most part. But then there's a part of me that's like, with death penalty stuff, like, could we just have like a sociopath island where they all go and then it's just Lord of the Flies, like, whatever, like law of the people rules. Like, I don't want to send tax dollars there. I don't want to, y'all figure it out. You get a fishing pole and, some sticks and some twine and like,
I don't even think they deserve that. I think what it comes down, I think, now, I'm not talking about a 19-year-old dating an 18 or 17-year-old or 16-year-old or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like child molesters. But in that case, I think what they should do truly is they should give the person the option. You can have 25 to life, or you can spend 1 hour alone in a room with this family and they can do anything they want. There are no laws in that room. Let it go. I know that's cold, but as someone who has been the family member of someone who has had that happen, I think that would be effective, highly effective. And that person could do anything. And maybe they still go to prison afterward. But I think if you gave families that opportunity, or loved ones the opportunity to physically punish in any way they desire, I guess there doesn't really matter. I don't think anybody would rethink that, because people would be horrible to these people. But even just the ability to punch them in the face would be so therapeutic for so many people who have had their children and their loved ones go through this, but on the same token, that's never going to happen. It's too, like medieval, I guess. But yeah, I think that would be we're off to, I'm sorry. Yeah. Robin Thomas says she could have definitely been that woman in that situation that we talked about. And she said, he never threatened me or hit me, but crazy is dangerous, period. And you're absolutely right. Oh my God. And Ariel says that her ex asked her how to kill someone without being caught. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah. And Jen said she's too many triggers today. She has to go. We understand.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jen. Yeah, this is a heavy topic. We're switching over to questions.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, let's switch gears completely and talk about self-care.
Let's do that. Okay. Everybody gear switch. Boom.
Yes.
Okay. So we were talking a little while ago, right before we came on, about how sometimes we get burned out and how sometimes we feel like we really need to focus on self-care again. And it's a big thing on YouTube right now. A lot of creators are saying they're burned out. But Dana, what did you want to talk about? You kind of had a good point about that, being more concerned about your self-care or ours.
Oh, well, we were just talking, just like Angie was saying, this is a common thing, and more YouTubers are starting to come out and say, yeah, I'm just so burned out. And Angie and I both kind of got to this live stream today, and we're like, oh man, we're so frazzled. We've just been running all day. And I had said, I really have got to start practicing what I preach when it comes to self-care, because this, rushing through the days and trying to do all of this is, it's no way to live. And it's important that, we matter, and you guys matter. And it's important that we just take time to take care of ourselves, whatever that might be. So that's something I'm going to be really thinking about over the next few days. I guess the other aha moment I had with that was the realization of, I think my kind of repertoire for self-care is minimal. Like, I would like to expand the level of things that I do to take care of myself. So I guess, how do you know when you're starting to burn out, and what are some things that you do for self-care? Angie?
Oh, personally, I get frazzled and I start to feel overwhelmed. And so this is going to sound really bizarre, but because I run a business and I do all these other things, one of the things I do is actually silly and doesn't even seem like self-care, but I hired someone who was the opposite of me. And what I mean is, like me, okay, here's an example. So we're doing this big, on the other side of my company, we're doing this big blogging project, bringing in some new bloggers, doing all these things. And I have to meet with them all today. And I was this morning completely frazzled by this idea, because I thought, oh my God, I don't even know what everybody is doing or who they even are and all this stuff. And so then my person that I hired, I said, oh, wait, I don't have to freak out, because I could just ask her. She does all the things that I am not as good at. And so I guess one of the best ways to self-care is to recognize your limitations, and instead of actually beating yourself up or trying to change yourself, sometimes make allowances for your limitations. You know what I mean? Because, and I don't know if I want to call it limitations, but I have strengths in different areas. and one of them is not remembering all the little things that are outside of my direct line of what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So like, I know I can't even remember my words right now, but I know that's one of the things. But how do I know when I'm burning out is when I start to feel that way. I start to feel overwhelmed, and I get off task. I get off schedule. I end up late for everything. I find myself not, like, right now I'm doing really bad on my nails. They're really bad. And I noticed that. So I need to start stepping up my game a little bit. I noticed, I do minimal self-care instead of optimal self-care. I mean, I'm a parent and I'm a business owner and all this other stuff. So I only have so many hours in the day, but it's a concern. So that's kind of, for me, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like things get out of control, disheveled, like my office gets messy and so one of the things I do is recognize, like I said, my limits in order to start getting back on track. Another thing I do, and that's been a while now, it's been a while, but another thing I do is I try to notice what I'm not doing. And I try to decide if I can't do it right this minute, then I'll put it down in my little bullet journal. I'll be like, this, do your nails or whatever, you know what I mean? So I try to kind of keep that in line with everything. I don't know. What about you? What do you notice? How do you know when you start to feel like you're not doing what you should do, or how do you start doing what you should do? What are your best techniques?
This has been something that I've struggled with my whole life. And it's one of the most frustrating, one of the top 5 most frustrating things about myself, that annoy me about myself, is that I really struggle with having the insight into knowing when I'm burning out. It tends to be I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of it. I become more busy. I become more disorganized. I become more messy. I mean, there's obvious signs there, but it's like I gloss over it.
Me too.
And then things are so extreme that like my whole life, or maybe not my whole life, but some major area, sometimes my whole life just totally falls apart. Yeah. And then I'm forced to do something different. And I want to get out of that pattern to where I can start seeing the stuff. I guess I do see it, but I gloss over it. I'd like to get to the place where I quit minimizing it or glossing over it and thinking that I'll just handle this later, and making time on a daily basis to do things for self-care. I still think I have that old mentality of self-care is something that's fun or it's something that's big.
Yeah.
And at least doing like little small practices that I can incorporate in my schedule throughout the day, I think would be very much needed, because it's hard to be in this, like, we both love what we do, but it's hard to be in the kind of in the mud of emotional and abuse in general every single day. And it quickly becomes your normal because that's just what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I don't realize there's like blips, there's like little moments where I realize, wow, okay, maybe I really do just need to switch gears and do something to recharge, because I'll go out with friends and I sometimes feel like this big wet blanket because everything in my life is so heavy.
Yeah.
And so then it's sort of like, okay, I really need to get some more dimension, positive, healthy dimension in there. So it's not, because I want to do this. I'm 41. I feel like I'm just getting going with all this. I've got another 60 years inside of me. So I need to pace myself,
I totally feel you. And, on that same token for you specifically, what I would say is you've got to put boundaries in place in ways that are uncomfortable sometimes. For example, and I want to respond to every single person who messages me on Facebook. I want to respond to everybody who emails me and comments, and I do my best to respond to as many as I can. But what I do now that I didn't do before, that has probably saved my life, is at some point in the day, I try really hard, at least once a day, to go offline. And I mean, I don't look at my phone, or if I do, I only look at things that are unrelated to my work. And if I watch YouTube, it has to be something that's not related to my work. Like right now I'm really into like ancient societies and stuff, like I intentionally foster other parts of my life. I make sure I spend time with my husband, time with my kids. And I have my assistant work my schedule around so I can always be available when they get off the bus, so I can talk to them. Little things. And this is a big, important part for me. It took a while to get to this point where I was like, this is what I'm going to do, but it is very important. And so what I think for you personally, sometimes you just have to turn off and stop working, which is very difficult for us because we are so driven and passionate about what we do. But if you do turn off and stop working at certain times of the day, at least when you're able to, then when you come back, you're so much more focused, because you might have thought about work a little bit when you weren't working. And sometimes my not working is sitting down and sketching out an idea I have, or, writing something that may or may not be for this audience or whatever. But it's always not talking to people. I need to recharge emotionally that way. And mostly I try to focus on, personal relationships outside of work as much as I can, and me time even, taking a bath now and then instead of a shower, with some candles and some in the bath now. I like rose petals or whatever, but salt even, in the bathtub, anything to kind of, lots of different ways you can help self-care, but tiny things. One thing I wanted to say to you too is that we tend to think all or nothing. Like we're either going to be a messy, sloppy, whatever, or we're going to be perfect, but there's no in between, but really there is, like right now I'm thinking, okay, well, when I'm done here, I do need to record a video and then I have a meeting, but maybe after that, while I'm editing my video, maybe I'll paint my nails. I don't know. I don't know how I do that, but you think about things, little things, or maybe I'm going to go to bed early tonight or whatever. One thing do one thing different today, Dana, than you did yesterday, and make it toward your own self-care.
I think that's great advice that we could all take, is
Yeah.
doing one positive thing differently. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but taking a small step in a positive direction. Yeah.
And you know what they say, and it tends to be true in my case, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. Sometimes self-care is even, and I did a video called "Is Your Clutter a Symptom of Your Abuse?" because it's potentially the case. But sometimes even just taking one step in decluttering your space, like if you have a little table next to your desk, I'm looking at the little table next to my desk full of clutter right now. It has an iPad, a cup, a phone, a doorknob because my doorknob fell off, a notebook, a couple of pens. Probably needs to be cleaned off. But the point is that when you take 5 minutes to clean off one space, suddenly that whole room looks cleaner. So like my entryway table, if I clean off my entryway table, my house feels like a whole new house. Not really, but it makes a big difference because you feel that space and then you feel like you can breathe better, so whether it's clutter or it's personal stuff or whatever, just take one tiny step and, buy yourself a Starbucks today or, like go pull the weeds in your garden if they've been bothering you or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Sometimes self-care is doing something that you enjoy doing, even if it's work to someone else, which is why I say sometimes I sketch out my ideas during my self-care time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all really, really great tips. I totally agree about our space and kind of just reclaiming it like one small area at a time. I watch like hoarders and stuff on YouTube every now and again. And I always think about that. I'm like, of course these people are getting like angry and defensive and overwhelmed and frustrated. Like you're having them go through everything like one piece at a time and all of it's chaos. Like I really feel like if they just took either everything out of the house or everything out of the bathroom and then just reclaimed like a small space, it would just help that person so much more to just like you said, like get reconnected with that space and to feel how it feels with being just, you're creating your own little oasis of organization and you can just breathe and everything has a place and it's good,
Yeah. And, Lost Miranda here, she says, I discovered a great self-care act, building a vision board. I love this. She said, by forcing yourself to vision positive things in the future and working on your board, it will make you feel great. She's right. I have a vision board that I probably need to update. She's right.
I totally need to update mine too. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
I heard a good exercise about vision boards a while ago that it was a game changer for me. They had said, and I forget where I even heard this from, but it was something along the lines of with vision boards, so often we'll put like specifics, like stuff, like, oh, I really want to take a trip to Paris, or I want a house for me, it would be a house on a lake.
Oh yeah.
It would be my dream. Right.
Yeah.
And, they said it's very rarely the things that we want. It's the feeling that we think those things will give us.
Yes.
And so for me, like a lake house represents like having fun. It's a sense of connection, like having friends over and doing stuff like that. And so then my last vision board, I probably don't have it anymore because it was probably one of the many things that was thrown out in the fire now that I'm thinking about it. But, on it had images of the emotions that I wanted to feel in my life. So, or it was more like scenes. So like one of them was a dinner party. So like just connecting and spending time with friends.
That's very interesting. I'm looking at mine right now and it's been a while since I made it, but it's just like that. I mean, there's there are a couple of pictures, but mostly it's words about feelings and times and then there's eyes, because I know from research that psychologically people are more likely to look at eyes. So I know to look at it more because I'm a nerd.
You're so cute.
I think about too many things. But yeah, so it's really interesting. There's only, I think, 1, 2, 3, just 3 or 4 pictures, and the rest of it is all, words, feelings, circumstances, things like that. It's, the happiest time of my life, just have fun with it, little things like that. And that's really interesting how similar we are.
Yeah.
In some ways.
That's so funny. And it's so huge to think about. Yeah, this is, or like if a person really is like, no, I really want to go to Paris.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, what do you think that trip to Paris would be? Is it the sense of adventure? Is it a new culture or a different language? Or is it the food? Is it the art? And thinking about what we think those experiences, the emotions that we're really looking for, and then how we can go about tapping into that on a more regular basis, instead of being like, okay, I need to wait until I own that lake house or I go to Paris in order to feel a certain way.
Such a great point.
It's such a, and then, then you're just creating that ideal life in little moments that are doable on a daily basis. Because I think when we put so much importance on this end event of having the dream house or the dream vacation or the dream relationship, and then we get it, and it's sort of like, is this all there is?
Yeah, I totally get that. I do. And when you think about it, I mean, like back to your Paris example, like you could learn how to cook French food, because let's be honest, a lot of people go to Paris for food,
right.
Learn how to drink wine. And I say that because I do not know how to drink wine properly. I know this. I'm very aware of it, but I could study it if I wanted to go to Paris. I could maybe, learn about French wine or whatever people do. I don't really like wine, so I'm not a good wine drinker, but I do appreciate it as an art form. Anyway, and, or you could learn how to, you could research the stuff and watch French movies and all this stuff. But, go to cafes in your local area. There's always, I get that. I really love that, actually, because, if your goal is something like that, you could literally incorporate a tiny bit of that in your daily life. Read that book, French Women Don't Get Fat. It's a great book. And it's about a woman who went to France. And anyway, we're off the topic, but that's little things you can do, people. Yeah, little things. Okay. Mickey said she just cooked herself a good dinner with lots of veggies. Right on. I love that.
Very cool. And here's one from Anne. She says, self-care makes me feel guilt. I don't know why. How do I figure that out? I'm not a drug or alcohol user, but I feel like I self-sabotage more than self-care. Like I don't deserve self-care. Why?
I know why. Can I talk?
Go for it.
I felt like this for years. It's because somebody in your life told you that you didn't deserve anything, or that you didn't deserve to care for yourself, or that you always had to put someone else first, or you always had to take the scraps, right? So like for me, I never thought it would be okay for me to buy a brand new car, even though I could afford to buy a brand new car at one point. I mean, I'm not talking about a real fancy car like a Tesla, but it was a Nissan, whatever. But, but why should I spend a similar amount of money on a used car, or even less money on a used car that's not dependable, when I could afford to buy a new car at that time? You know what I mean? And something in my head kept saying, take the leftovers, take what other people don't want. And then what was interesting is this is already after I had gone no contact with my mother. I went ahead and bought the new car. There was a warranty. It made the most sense. And then I heard through the grapevine that my mother was walking around telling people, I don't know how they afforded that car. They don't, basically implying that we didn't deserve to have a stupid new car when we were in our late 30s. You know what I'm saying? Come on. So little things like that, we have these voices in our head. It's probably not even her voice in her head. I can't remember the name of the person that you just said. Who was that?
The name of the person I just said.
The question. Who was it? Who asked the question?
Oh, Ange.
Ange. Okay. So you said Ange or Anne?
A-N-G.
Okay, Ange. Oh, hey, what's up, Ange? Yeah, I think it's a lot about not believing that you deserve it because somewhere along the line you were given that message. And I think it's also codependency issues, are creeping in. But we have this need as people who have been codependent or who are, and even as empaths, to make sure everybody else is okay first. And if we have the time, or we make the time to take care of ourselves, a lot of times we feel guilty because we think, well, I could be doing all these other things for all these other people in our lives or whatever. And so I would ask you to challenge that belief. And I would ask you to sit down and write down all the things that someone told you about yourself that were not true, or that you don't want to be true. And I would ask you to let it sit overnight. And then I would ask you to go back in the morning, relook over that list and cross out every single one of those, starting number one with, I don't deserve self-care. and I should feel guilty when I do self-care. I want you to cross that out and say, I deserve the very best. I deserve self-care. I owe myself self-care, and I'm going to start giving myself self-care. Self-care is good, and go from there. Thoughts, Dana?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I would be curious if you guys want to make this a group thing. Let's maybe start gathering up some pictures or some words for a vision board. Maybe we can do that as a group, and we can alternate doing my channel, your channel, and
That's a great idea.
It'll be fun. That'll be fun. And I'll be curious to see what people have to say, like down below in the comments, if people post words or pictures that it's just fun, like that inspire them or what they want to. I think it's so important, especially after abuse, that we create a compelling future for ourselves and realize that even though your life feels blown apart right now, it doesn't have to stay that way.
Right.
And that we can start to steer into this, but it's really helpful to know what you want to steer into.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to make a note of that. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's really cool. Okay, let's see here. And Robin Thomas says, speaking of self-care, I've been highly annoyed that victims of domestic abuse don't have a facility to go to. Drug addicts get rehab, but loveless addicts don't have one. Well, there are some facilities, believe it or not. I know in California, I've seen at least 2. I'm not in California. I just know about them because I've had clients from them. But what I do know is that they're very expensive, and insurance, of course, doesn't pay for them like they would drug rehab. And I agree that there need to be more places like this. In fact, someday in my fantasy world, I will have that. In my head, I have this idea of creating some such facility, but one that would also be a safe place for, people to get out with their kids. Because I think that while everybody struggles to get out, I think people with kids, especially little kids, may struggle more because the financial circumstances being what they are, and because, let's be honest, it's a lot more expensive to rent a 3-bedroom place than it is to rent a 1-bedroom place, or a studio, so if you're talking about that. But so I think that I see a lot more women and men with children. And then that's another thing, the men in these situations, because they, not only are they concerned about money, but they're going to be more concerned about, well, they might take away my kids, and they might be more concerned about other issues. But I think that I love that idea. I just hope that someday. Anyway, thoughts, Dana? Yeah,
I'm with you. It is frustrating. And even the domestic violence shelters that are out there, they're not meant to be a long-term thing. It's generally 90 days max. Most women that I worked with were in and out with under 7 days. It was really short-term housing for them to get lined up, because most people you don't want to live in a shelter. Communal living isn't easy living, especially when you've got 10 other traumatized people and, 15 other traumatized children. It's loud. It has its own set of issues. And so, it would be fantastic. And this is something, Angie, that I think, because I have a very similar vision. And I think, down the road, I think we should put our heads together because we have the community. I think that we'd be able to figure out funding and to be able to do something like this. There's a very legitimate need for it. There's a need for that longer term housing, and for even there's also, I feel like, a real need for a place that would be more of like a retreat center.
That's exactly what I was thinking, like cabins and
yeah.
I was thinking that.
Where you're just, because man, boy, if I had a magic wand, that's what I for sure would have needed. Mm-hmm. It was just a place like, I just need to come here and I just need to fall apart and I just need somebody to take care of me.
Yes.
And it would be great, pampered, cooked for, and like a spa retreat kind of thing there's like a meditation time. There's a very loose schedule. You can attend events when you want to. There'd be on staff like therapists and life coaches. There would be yoga. There would be.
We're on the same page.
Okay.
Seriously. A medical staff because, daycare, schools, like I thought like it could be a whole thing, a whole community and like a retreat center. I was thinking like, I don't know, did you ever go to like Girl Scout camp or church camp or anything like that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I thought it would be really cool to buy one of those facilities that was like being sold. They are being sold in various places in the country. They're kind of off in the in the woods a little bit so that it'd be hard to find people. You know, we could do like turn the existing stuff into buildings and cabins and things, you know, reinforce the cabins, put some insulation in them and whatever, and just really start growing from there. And then people who could afford to pay, they would pay. And then people who couldn't afford to pay, they could fill out an application, and maybe we could help, you know, some people get to safety even. And then I thought people who are there, if they wanted to, you know, after they get past the initial retreat time, I guess, but at some point, if you wanted to live there long term, then you would, you know, contribute, like you would teach, or you would, you know, help cook, or you would, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think we really should get together, have a brainstorm session.
I would love that.
And figure it out.
Group. I'll add you to it. I have a group of dreamers who are thinking, and I don't mean any weird political thing by that. I mean people who are on the same page with me. And I'll add you to that group, because one of the people is somebody that's in, she I don't know what her actual job is. She's one of my followers for a long time, but she's really educated about, you know, government funding and stuff like that. And for what is it when they call a 501c or something, the nonprofit? I don't really know about all that. But
the 501c3.
Yeah. And I don't know all the details on that stuff, but she does. So that it's a good mix of people who are all in some way interested. So remind me, and I'll add you to that group after this session.
Yeah, that would be great. Cause that's the thing. Like, we have the community.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we have the people, and like, it's just a matter of getting organized and getting a plan. And then I think just really making it happen. But yeah I think it's totally doable.
I really think it is too. And my kids even said they would come live with me if I had to get, if I built that that setup, you know? So I thought that was really cool of them. But anyway.
Yes. Very cool.
Lots of really cool stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, Shastina's on the same page. Yeah.
Hot potato.
Bring them into reality. What'd you say?
This gal, Hot Potato, Hot Potato, is so fantastic to see you. I have been thinking about you. I have not seen you around in a long time. And I know you were really struggling there for a while. So I'm just glad that you are here. And so just good to see you. But she was saying, I'm looking for one for PTSD victims, but all I can find are cancer survivor camps. So
this would be, And
there's a need.
You're right. Yeah.
She says only retreat centers are for vets and drug addicts, veterans and drug addicts. Well, for now, right? Like,
for now,
I think we just need to get organized and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I have somebody that's really good at organizing, because I'm not, but I love that. I love that. And that's been a dream of mine for a long time. And to hear that it goes so well with yours, you know, and even you'll see when you add you to this group, the cover page of this group is a row of cabins.
Okay, girl, you have mentioned this before, and I have to tell you, this is one of the things, the tiny houses.
Yes.
This was a big part of my dream too. And so when you were talking about this, you'd mentioned this before, like months ago. And as you were talking, I'm like, what? Like, it was so crazy to hear somebody else like articulating this. And I actually, many moons ago, I had a vacation rental business. Okay. Oh, and so I'm super familiar with these cabins, and like so much that's involved with them and things to consider. And
there's something here. We gotta get it together. There's something here. Yeah,
I agree.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Yes, indeed. Okay, let's see. Yes, Pam Hall, you're right. They are great inspirations. And I think it's also, and thank you, she said it was also a good idea that I was thinking to buy a place that was already kind of built somewhere, because it would preserve the land and also save money. I'm just going to add that. But, you know, because a lot of times they'll already have some of the
infrastructure. Yeah.
And of course they would be tiny houses, but I mean, let's be honest. There are some people who don't want to give up their lifestyle because of where they're living the sweet life or whatever, but then they're being psychologically abused at the same time. But I think the majority of people who, or at least the target for this particular setup, would be people who just need to be safe and need to have a place to kind of clear their head, and kind of, they would be okay with a tiny house, because let's be honest, if you're you would have like, if we purchased like a Girl Scout camp or Boy Scout camp or a church camp, you would have like a center hall area where everybody, you would cook for everybody and serve the meals and do all the things and, activities and stuff. So even if you had kids, it would be okay to be in a tiny house, at least for as long as you were there. I mean, I guess my point is you would have other activities and other things you would do in addition to, and the cabins would be perfect for tiny houses. They already have like bunk beds in them and everything, some of them. So I don't know. It would take a lot of work. But I think.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, it for sure would. I have a friend of mine who, like, I know would be able to help, like, plan all this. They used to own a hotel, and they owned an RV park.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so it's kind of like the same. And I had a vacation rental business, so like totally familiar with like the streamlining, like the turning over of the guest management, I guess is what I'm saying. With all of that and setting all of that, because it would basically be an RV park is what we would be looking for. And then, as the funds allow, then getting
smart
in other, because it's all set up with electric and water.
That would be perfect. Oh my gosh. That's spot on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody's excited about this.
I know, it would be so freaking amazing. The cool thing with those little tiny houses or like little drag and drop cabins is you can expand as funds allow versus like taking on a loan for like $3 million and then building something out. And then people may or may not show up with an old, like you said, a place that already existed. It's going to be a lot easier to get a loan for a place like that. And then you can expand as the need grows. And so your initial cash outlay is not going to be anywhere near where it would be if you were to build from scratch.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, girl, we need to talk. I've got
we really do
ideas, and you've got a vision, and we just.
Yeah. I wish I could, I got to find the name of that group. I was going to try to paste the group into the chat here because so many people are excited about it. But I love all of that. I think that's awesome. So what I'll do, you guys, is I'll put Dana in the group. And then if you're in Dana's group, Thrive After Abuse, she can either share the link to the group for people who want to get involved in kind of trying to help us figure this out, or I'll also share it in Span for anyone who wants to do that. So,
okay. And I will make a note to myself. I'll put it in the comments down below after this video airs.
Perfect.
Too.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Mickey says, I'd probably just sit in my cabin the whole time. I'm so shy and awkward, and that would be okay if you wanted to sit in your cabin. But I think part of what I would want in that situation is like a kind of a welcome wagon, or at the very least, someone to stop by and say, hey, this is me. I would want to be one of those people to do that. A coach or a therapist or even just a camp welcome person, I don't know, would come to your door and say, welcome, here's a little welcome basket, here's some things you could do here, let me know if you need anything. Here's how you make an appointment for coaching. And here's some group sessions and some yoga and whatever. I mean, it would be good to make it real easy for people to get involved in something, And again, if in the perfect world, if people would stay, then, they could potentially become part of the whole thing. Like they could, work in the kitchen, or they could teach a class, or they could babysit or whatever, and of course there would have to be all kinds of checks and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of good things we could do. Yes. Well,
and people too, if people decided after they kind of are, leave the program and then they decide to come back, we could even see about getting funding, because it would help increase financial independence if we could provide jobs for people.
Yeah.
Right. So we could even offer like volunteer positions where people are like, hey, I don't want to really work there, but I would love to come back during a summer, especially if we had it in great places. Right.
Right.
They're like, I would love to come back and be like a camp counselor of sorts for 6 weeks in June. Yeah. I'm willing to volunteer, or I could really use the job, and helping people get on their feet. We could do classes on all kinds of topics and really make it like just a healing, fun, amazing therapeutic place.
Yeah. And even have job training. That was another thing I thought of, job training for adults. Like, to teach them how to start their own business, or teach them how to, if somebody knew how to do a certain kind of trade or whatever, they could teach that. There's so much. We could help with resumes. I mean, there's just, the possibilities are endless, and it's just really exciting. The idea, I get really excited when I talk about it.
I know. I hear you. I love hearing the passion and the enthusiasm in your voice. Cause yeah.
I've been thinking about this for a long time.
I hear you. Me too.
Right on. Yeah. Okay. See, every time we talk, something new. Okay. Oh, holy schmolies. I just realized it's 1:44 my time. So I got to go soon. I'm supposed to be in a meeting in 13 minutes.
Okay.
Or 11 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll just wrap it up now. People are excited about this idea. They love it. Pam is saying that she's a licensed certified massage therapist who deals with trauma victims. I love that. There's yoga, specifics for yoga for trauma. Yeah. Missouri Cowboy is saying, therapists and teachers who are actually trained in trauma. I think could be,
yes.
Yep. We could just get a whole brigade of life coaches and therapists that are, just the self-empowerment, the self-care. We could have all kinds of workshops and
tons of things.
Stuff. Yeah. It's like it would be seriously like, even if the abuse component wasn't there, it would be like fun camps for adults that are based around like self-help kind of stuff, just empowerment and everything, increasing self-esteem and fun and connection, and with like-minded people. It would just be fun.
Yeah. And specifically, I think for me, one of the biggest, most important things is to have at least a portion of the camp that is dedicated to charity work, as in bringing people in who need help now and who can't get out. And I don't know if I want to call it charity, but I want to call it, a leg up or a hand up program where, for those people who feel stuck, because I was one of those people for a minute, where you feel stuck and you look around and everybody's like, but just do this or just do that. But it just feels impossible. And if you had a clean, safe place to take your kids where, they could go to school and that you would be safe and et cetera, it might happen for a lot more people. And maybe we could save people in big ways,
I agree. Yeah. Even having like an on-site like daycare center. I mean, that was the biggest struggle with the shelter that I worked at, is these women are like, okay, I get a job making $9-10 an hour. I've got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Like paying for daycare is more expensive than what I'll be making.
Yeah. And like one kid, if they're an infant, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it's so expensive. And our rules at the shelter were that you couldn't leave your children with other women.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them were just stuck, and then they would just give up and then go back. And so kind of breaking that cycle of being like, we've got on-site daycare. We could connect with other facilities. Because here's the thing, a lot of other shelters, if women are there and they sometimes will have the funds to get them a bus or a plane ticket to somewhere else that can house them for longer. So we might be able to connect to other shelters and have people, that we know need our services. Like, I'm a single mom. I've got an infant, or I've got a couple kids. Where do I go?
Yeah. Yeah. I like what Hot Potato and Mo Cowboy are saying. Charity can take away your sense of self-worth, allow people to experience the sense of self-accomplishment and self-worth. I totally agree. And I like the idea. And I originally my idea was that I wasn't even going to try to charge anybody. My original plan in my head, my ideal plan was that basically the camp would run because the people who lived there would help pay by working. We would have like gardens, and we would have like, kitchens, and we would basically they would help us help other people with their service. And then if somebody can pay, they don't have to do all the extra, or whatever, unless they want to help, you know what I mean? And Hot Potato says, these camps often function on an alumni basis. Alumni, I don't know how y'all say that, but I say it both ways depending. But that's another good point. People who have lived, like kind of like what you said, but she says, former survivors who are alumni run future camps for new members. I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Totally with you about, if we formed a nonprofit and we survived on grants and donations, there are a lot of members of this community that have money. Yeah. And that would be more than, even if we had people donate $5 a month, there's enough of us out there that would do that. And it was, so my vision would be either free or very low cost. We would have total transparency, because that's one thing that really bugs me about nonprofits is then you find out, the director is getting 80% of the funds and they're just having everybody else volunteer. And, the funds don't go where you think they're going.
Right.
But just having everything be very open about these are the different fundraisers. People could vote on like how we could raise money for certain projects. People could vote on the projects we want to work towards, and then just having that whole circle, and then letting people know this is a service that we offer, but it's a hand up. It's not a hand out. Like we really do encourage you to participate and to help in the gardens, or even if you're fresh out and you're like, I'm too overwhelmed to help. I'm drowning. Yeah. Even just giving words of support to other people. Like there's more than money that contributes to this sense of community here. Like you can help paint little rocks with affirmations and, positive encouragement. And there's things that a person can do. So
Yeah. This is really exciting. Okay. So we have a lot of people are saying I would support it for sure. I'm so in. So listen, you guys, come back to this video afterward. I'm going to put Dana in the group. She can also add people to the group from Thrive After Abuse. I'll put the link in span. Let's talk about this some more. Let's really seriously, because I think with the support, and I'm sure that we could even get other people in our niche here from YouTube here to join in the effort.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like Richard and maybe even Tracy from the other day. A lot of, okay. And you know who else? And she's not really huge on YouTube, but Brie
Bonchet.
Yeah. Why is that? Yeah. She would probably be really into this, as well as Athena Moberg from cptsdfoundation.org. Both of them are very interested in, lifting up survivors of all different types of abuse. So this is I'm getting the goosebumps. Okay. We'll talk, everybody.
Yes. Okay. Good plan. Okay. I like it. Okay, Angie, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, don't forget next week. Okay. So I'm going to put the link to the group. We'll down below in the comments in like an hour after I get the link from Angie and everything. And then next week, we're going to be over on Angie's channel. So make sure to subscribe, Angie Atkinson, over on YouTube and pretty much across the internet, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we will see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Okay.
Thanks, Dana.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.